Hey everybody, Ron Harris here, MD Online Editor, and starting a new series called Ronline Report Classics. We're going to be revisiting some of the best Ronline reports. This first one chose none other than probably one of the most famous bodybuilder, classic physique competitor in the world right now, Chris Bumstead. So this interview was done early September 2017. He had done 3 pro shows. He had turned pro at 2016 North Americans as a bodybuilder, then had done the Diana Cadu Classic a couple months later, where he took 3rd place, came back spring of 2017 and won back-to-back Pittsburgh Pro and Toronto Pro. And then, of course, as you all know, if you follow him, that began his Olympia climb. 2017, he was second. 2018, he was second. And then 2019, 20, and 21, he's the champion, the Classic Physique Olympia champion. So it's cool to watch him here. He's only 22 years old. He talks about a lot of things, how he got into training, how he got into competing, how he turned pro in bodybuilding, because even though he knew he wanted to do classic already as a pro, he couldn't get down to the amateur weight for classic. So strategically, he turned pro as a bodybuilder at a certain weight and then immediately was ready to jump successfully into classic physique. So Chris Bumstead, again, one of the most popular athletes in the world right now, especially in our little industry. Thought you'd like to take a look at Chris almost 5 years ago. Listen to what he had to say about all this. And that's it. Hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report as we're heading into the 2017 Mr. Olympia weekend coming up. Weekend after this next one. Today we have one of the top stars of the Classic Physique Division, 22-year-old Christopher Bumstead from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, joining us today. Thank you, Chris, for being here.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Now, we did do a story in the magazine not that long ago, but I know not everybody reads the magazine, and I want your story to be heard. So we're going to start with a little bit of your background. For those who don't know it, you were actually quite an athlete. What are the sports that you played when you were growing up?
I played pretty much all of them throughout. A little more competitively, I played football and basketball, as well as track and field. I played those competitively throughout high school, so those were what I focused on, really.
Yeah.
I'd have track training pretty much all year, and then kind of compete more in the spring, and then football in the summer, basketball in the winter.
In America, they really push football on every male student. Did they really push hockey on you?
Not really, no. It's much more popular for sure. I mean, 80% of my friends probably all played hockey, and it was what people like. The girls like the hockey players and whatnot, but it was never really a sport for me. So.
Okay. So you actually started weight training for sports, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I always thought like what would give me the edge in my sports would be becoming bigger and stronger. For some reason, it was a mentality I've always had. Other people were just like working on drills and stuff, and instead I'd rather go home and I'd lift weights or work out in the basement, do whatever I could, try and get strong.
Okay. So I remember you telling me you were inspired by Tom Platz and you wanted big legs. So where did you, at 14 years old, where did you get imagery of Tom Platz? Was it online? Was it magazines, books?
It was mainly online, I'd say, back then, because internet was still big back when I was that age. But I'd seen magazines as well. All the old school bodybuilders. He was always just like the main focus on big legs from like the old school bodybuilders and whatnot. Still, no one has legs developed like to that proportion. Like it was something out of this world. So just what I looked up to, and the way he trained was just crazy. Killed himself every workout, and I love that about it.
Yeah, I mean that's odd because most kids, it's all about how much they can bench press, and they want big arms is always the number one thing they want. Big chest is after that, I guess, maybe shoulders. But you don't hear too many young kids talk about, I want big legs, I want to squat a lot of weight. But that was something that you actually wanted from day one, correct?
Yeah, I guess part of that probably stemmed from sports and like being football. I played like fullback and whatnot, so you need to have big, powerful legs to charge through people. But like even in high school, we'd be in the weight room at lunch or during spare or whatever, and everyone would be like obviously benching, like you said, trying to get their bench up, and I'd be that guy in the squat rack. I remember squatting like 4 plates, I believe, and end of grade 11, grade 12 throughout that, and just no one else was even touching the squat rack. It was just always where I felt comfortable, what I loved.
You had it all to yourself.
Yeah.
So you actually made amazing progress in your high school years. It says you went from you started high school at 170. Were you at your full height already, or are you 6', 6'1"? What do you think you are?
I'm just over 6 foot right now.
Okay.
That's probably around 5'10" starting high school.
Okay. So you started 170, which was not a small kid. You were already pretty athletically built, it seems. But graduated, got to 225 by the time you graduated.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, you were a good sized kid. So, how did you go from there to getting into, what we really call bodybuilding? You were training it for athletic purposes. How did you turn that into what became what we see today?
Well, I knew as soon as my body started responding so well to weight training, immediately my thoughts went to like bodybuilding. Oh, I could compete, but it was always like, I'll do it in the future. I'll do it in the future. Never really thought of stepping on stage until my sister started dating Ian Valliere, who's also a professional bodybuilder from Canada now. Yeah. So they started dating right at the end of high school for me, when I was in grade 12, and then I took a year off just to kind of work, make some money before I went off to university. And in that year off, I started to work out with him a bit more, and he got me really into it. So probably 8 months out of high school, there was a local show coming up, and he talked me into doing it. And I'd been training all year with him. I'd put on a lot of size, so he coached me through it, prepped me, dieted me down, and since then I stepped on stage and just loved it, and it all went up from there.
So, there are some husband and wife couples that are pros, but that's not so bizarre because they meet that way. It shows itself. But to have two pros in the same family, siblings, that's pretty rare. I can only think of maybe a couple other examples where there were sibling pros throughout the entire sport. Where did the genetics come from in your family?
I mean, I'd say they come from both my parents. My dad was a little more athletic. As a kid, I'd seen pictures of him. He did gymnastics at a young age, and there would be pictures of him at the bottom of like a pyramid that they would do just kind of for a picture in the yearbook. And he's at the bottom, and you can see his like triceps bulging out and kind of thing. So he was a pretty big boy too, and I knew he ran a lot. He did track as well, but ran more long distance. And he still had like big legs back in high school, even from running so much. So a lot comes from his athletic side. And my mom wasn't as much into sports, but she was always super fit at a young age and whatnot. So I'm sure genetics come from both sides.
Okay. So a lot of guys obviously train to look good and love training, but competing is a whole other animal. How did you actually, was it Ian that got you into your first competition, or how did you end up doing your first show? And it was only 2014, right?
Yeah, it was 2014. Ian definitely pushed it. It was something like I said, when my body started to respond so well, it was just like, I can be good at this. I enjoy working out. I enjoy the eating side of it too, which is the hard part. And he was the one who just kind of accelerated it, probably got me on stage and taught me everything I needed to know. But yeah, he was a big push for sure.
Cool. All right, so let's give a brief review of your competitive history for the viewers out there. So 2014, Canada actually, I think, has they have a really strict system of how you have to go up the ranks, which I think is a great idea, because I don't know if you realize the U.S. is kind of a free for all. We have national qualifiers, but then anybody can qualify. Maybe you're the only one in your class, and you win that, and you go to the national shows in the U.S., and you always have a good amount of people who have just no business being there.
Yeah.
Canada, they have it right, because you have to win. Is it level 1, 2, 3? What do they call it?
We have level 1, and that's like the city you live in usually, or anywhere within your province, a certain city. And then once you come, I believe, top 5 at that show, you qualify for provincials. So it's like a state show. You have to be living within that province. And then top 5 at that, then you can go to nationals.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So, 2014, that's what you did. You did Sudbury Championships. Must be somewhere in Ontario, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Junior, which, as you would go on, you were undefeated as a junior, it looks like, as you went on the next few shows. Nobody beat you as a junior. Not only that, your very first show, which you were 19, I'm guessing?
19, yeah.
So you also won the Open Men's Heavyweight and Overall.
Yeah.
At 19 years old, which I'm sure that pissed off like the 35-year-old guys in the show.
There were a few guys who weren't too happy,
Same year, you go on to the Ontario Championships. Again, it's junior win, and 4th in the Open Heavyweights.
Yep.
Tougher show, I'm sure. Next year, 20 years old, you go to the Canada for the first time, and once again won the junior, 3rd in the Open Heavyweights. And 2016 was the last time you went to the Canadians. You took 2nd in the, was it 3rd? 2nd. 2nd in the heavyweights that year. But you skipped the juniors, even though it would have been a fairly, let's say, easy win. Let's not be unreal here. But why did you skip the juniors that year? I thought it was a pretty cool reason.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, as a junior bodybuilder, you only get 3 years, say, usually, to get to nationals and win that title. And I knew I loved having that title so much. Calling myself Junior Mr. Canada, I was the best junior bodybuilder in the country, was an amazing feeling. And once I had it, I felt like it wasn't really mine to take again the next year. I wanted to give that win to someone else who would enjoy it just as much as me, get that trophy, have that title under their belt. So it didn't feel right coming back and doing it again.
That says a lot about you, Chris. I really can't think of too many other people I know that would have done that. So props to you. You're a good guy. Okay, so 2016 turned out to be your year, though. You missed the Canadians, but you go to the North American, which is, guys, mostly Americans, but you also have Mexican athletes, Canadian athletes, and that's where it happened for you. You won the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
You got your pro card there. 21, you had just turned 21, or were you even 21 at that time?
I was just 21, yeah.
Okay, so you've just turned 22 recently?
I turned 22 this past February.
Oh, okay, so you've been 22 for a while. Okay, but still, all this year you're 22. So you turned pro as a bodybuilder. The classic division already existed. You already knew about it, obviously, by that point. Did you immediately know that you were going to compete as a classic physique competitor, or was that a decision that you made later on down the line?
It was something I hadn't 100% had my mindset to it, but I was very convinced that I would at least try it. But I knew a difference between when I did nationals, I had to be under 220 pounds for Canada's, and that killed me getting under there. That's too much small for my body weight.
Yeah.
Whereas North Americans was 225, so I came in looking much better for that, and I ended up winning that show. And as an amateur bodybuilder, at least I couldn't make the weight cutoff for the classic division.
Right.
So I knew would have to go pro as a bodybuilder and then get that weight increase. But also I had climbed the ranks as a bodybuilder is what I had been doing. I wanted to finish it like that.
Yeah.
And then when the new classic division came out, it was perfect for me. Like, I feel like I have the lines that are perfect for it. Nice shape. I'm not always a big fan of being too huge, especially at my height.
Yeah.
I have to be fit on stage like upwards of 260 pounds, which isn't not the most appealing thing for most bodybuilders, but I can still focus on what I need to right now. I still have a little bit of room to grow and things I can fine tune. So the class is definitely perfect for me.
What weight do you have to get down to as a pro for your height?
It's 225 pounds.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all. So, yeah. So, it must not be too much of a struggle. I know you're about 240 the last time you posted some pics on your social. So I'm sure it's not easy to get 225, but you're not going to be in that much pain.
It's good and it's bad, kind of. I still got to struggle pretty hard. Like 230 would probably be a lot easier for me to be able to. The whole point is being able to weigh in and have enough time to carb load and all that. So I often find myself having to suffer a little bit longer until weigh-ins, and then I'll usually end up a little bit flat on stage or whatnot because I have less time to carb up. But I'm not completely killing myself, but it's definitely not easy getting down there.
Right on. I mean, there are some people that would have said, why didn't he just go bodybuilding and put on 40, 50 pounds? And, it's funny if you look at who's getting more followers over the past couple of years. It's you're building a pretty big following right now. I have a son-in-law who's 20, just turned 24, and he follows people like you, Callum Von Moger. I mean, these are Physique Sadiq. These are the guys that the young generation is emulating. That's who they want to look like. I don't hear any of them talking about Rami or Rolly or Phil or Kai. That's all the older meatheads. So, I think you guys are the future for sure. There's no doubt. So let's talk about your pro record. It's 2 shows so far and 2 wins, right?
No, I did do, right after the North American show, I did a show in Miami, the Diana Cadeau.
Okay.
Where I came 3rd in that one. But I showed up pretty off point. Like, I had just prepped for 6 months into Americans, and then this was 2 months after. So it was almost an 8-month prep. My body was just not having it. So I showed up not looking my best, but it was still an experience, my first classic show, and it showed me that I wanted to be in classic. So I took a step back and prepared for next year.
Okay. So it's been the 2 major. You did Pittsburgh and Toronto this year then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
2 for 2 this year. Let's forget about the 2016 show.
Yeah, didn't happen.
So out of those 2 shows, I'm going to guess the Toronto show was probably a little more of a special win for you because I don't know how far Ottawa is from Toronto. How far is that?
It's a 5-hour drive.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Okay, so that's not as close as I thought it was.
But for in Canada, that's close.
That's close.
Everything's a 5-hour drive for us is like down the road. So
Because, you know, I was there and I heard your cheering section. There was a substantial amount of people that were there for you. So how many people do you think made that trip for you?
I'm not sure. I knew I had at least like 8 close friends and family that were down there that were like I go out for dinner with and I talk to regularly and they came down to see me. But I was getting a lot of messages and comments and DMs of like people from like a couple hours outside Toronto saying they were coming down to support me. So it was definitely an amazing feeling and awesome to be like representing Canada like that up on a stage in Canada. So it was really cool.
Well, now that I think about it, maybe they were just cheering because you were good, not because they were from your hometown or anything.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
You were definitely deserving of the cheers. Before we get any further, I see you have an MHP shirt on. You just you just signed on with them, right?
No, it's been a year actually.
Oh, okay.
As of just this week, I believe it's been a full year. They signed me right before North Americans, I believe. Wow. So, yeah.
Cool. Are you happy with the company? Loving their products so far?
Yeah, for sure. Their stuff's amazing. Tastes great, and keep using it throughout prep. So.
Now, when I haven't spoke to you for the magazine for a while, we did a regular profile, we did a leg training article. At that time, you were still working on your kinesiology degree at what school are you at? I can't pronounce it. How do you say it?
Dalhousie.
Dalhousie University in Halifax. Are you still there, or you put school on hold?
I went down to part-time school just because I'm traveling so much and whatnot. Right. So just doing a couple classes. And then I think I'm going to transfer schools too and finish my degree back home in Ottawa. So
that's the plan. You're pretty far from home. I think it would make more sense for you to get closer to the big city. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I remember talking to you, and you had some really good advice as far as how you've been able to stay injury-free. Because, correct, I'm sure these numbers might have gone up too, but the last time we spoke, you were capable of a 435-pound bench press, 635-pound squat, and you were doing a 705-pound deadlift. Are those numbers even up a little more now?
Not since then, no. I've been prepping so much. I haven't been focusing on strength. But I'm sure I'm going to have a bunch of time off this offseason, and I'll focus back on that. But no, I've been in prep mode for so long that the numbers kind of stayed the same. I'm still sticking to heavy weights as always, but they haven't gone up yet.
So, you know, you're one of the few guys your age I know that's really thinking ahead as far as staying healthy, staying injury-free. So what advice do you have for guys who want to train heavy and put the mass on, but do it without getting injured? What's your sequence? How you warm up, stretching? What do you do?
Warm up, of course, it depends what you're doing, but like, I'm never one to just walk in the gym and like put 400 pounds on the squat rack and do it. I'll start warm up like 10, 15 minutes on the bike. Usually just bike is always my favorite. It's not hard on you. And I'll like roll and stretch like a little bit. Usually I know what's tight on me. I can feel if it's my hip flexors, my glutes, hamstrings, whatnot. And I'll make sure to like really open those up. I'll do like upwards of like 20 reps for a few sets with just the bar, then a plate, and I increase very slowly. And just if I'm not feeling it, if I have a little bit of an injury or something, I'll stick to lighter weight and like a little bit more volume. But really, just it's all about warming up. Make sure everyone's loose and warmed up. Like also squats, deadlifts, and a lot of things. I'll jump on machines first. I'll start my workouts with like quad extensions and hamstring curls, and like a little bit of walking lunges, just super light, high volume, and then I'll go squat. And I'll go back to the machines at the end of the workout a little bit heavier, just make sure the blood's moving where it needs to be.
There's two schools of thought about stretching. Some people say you should stretch before the workout, some say after. Where do you do it?
Well, I don't do like static stretching before I work out. It's more like say when I'm doing a walking lunge, just no weight, just walking through it. I'll take a really long step and like really like thrust my hips forward and feel my glutes stretch and then stand up through it. I'll kind of put the muscle in a very stretched position and then contract it really quick with no weight on it. So it's ready to like fire under a lot of weight. But no, I don't static stretching.
How about foam rolling? Do you do that?
I do, yeah. Normally I'll do that like just after cardio or something when there's blood and the legs are warmed up.
And last question of this type, I promise. How about chiropractic and deep tissue? Do you do those?
Chiropractic, no. I've done a few deep tissue things. I find all the local people who are good around here, they're so sporadic and they're always so busy that I have to book a month in advance and then they cancel. and then I gotta wait another month, and it's just something I can't really rely on. So I usually try and just stick to my own rolling out and stretching and keep my body healthy. But I definitely think they help. It's just it's expensive and it's hard to be consistent with.
Agree.
Mhm.
So I want people to understand when they see your legs, they're like, wow. Obviously there's a genetic component, but you've worked very, very hard. Squatted over 600 pounds many, many times. And one thing that you said, which sounds like something Tom Platz would have done, is you'll take 225 and you'll do 100 reps no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
When was the last time you did that?
I think last time I did that was 8 weeks out from this show, so about a month and a half ago. I did one of those workouts like that. Yeah,
How long does that typically take you? Because that's a lot of reps.
it always depends how I feel, but I know I've gotten it done in I think 5 sets is the least I've done it in.
Yeah.
So about 20. But it was probably like 30, 25, 25, 20 kind of thing. But
I'd like you to tell the story about your lucky shoes. I thought that was the funniest story.
oh, those are completely ripped up now. They're gone. But yeah, it was like one of the first pair of Converse I had, just the low top white Converse. I remember first time pulling 6 plates in them, first time squatting 5 plates in them. They had a rip down the back, and from deadlifting, I always wrench it right up my shins and start bleeding. So they had a whole blood stain all over them and whatnot. And they smelled awful because I'd go barefoot in them half the time too. But it was a mental thing. I'd be sitting there working out and like look down at my shoes, see like got my music bumping, look down and I see the blood on my shoes and the rip in them, and I'm just like, I've done this before, I can do it again, kind of thing. And it was a mental thing, helped me get through it, and good luck. Yeah, exactly.
Um, the U.S., we give out a lot of pro cards in the U.S. I'm sure you're aware of this. A lot of pro cards. I mean, if you add them all up, I bet it's like in all the divisions, I bet we give out like 300-400 pro cards a year here in the various divisions. But Canada, very, very, very tough. In Canada, unless you leave Canada to get a pro card, is it one man a year turns pro, correct? Two now, two?
It's in the past it's been 2. It kind of depends how they feel. At nationals, sometimes they give out 1, and what I love that they used to do was if they didn't think anyone else deserved it, they wouldn't give it to anyone else. Which I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like just because you won the show, like oh no one else showed up this year, like well you're still don't look like a pro. So, but yeah, so it was 1 or 2 at nationals, but now we have a new show called the Ben Weider Legacy Cup.
Right.
So that one, I believe you need to come top 15 or top 10 at nationals, and then you can qualify for that one. And they give out another pro card. So
because it seems like a lot of good Canadians are coming out of the other shows. Like Ian, who was at the Amateur Olympia in Latin America of all places. I remember seeing the coverage. It was all these guys from Latin America, and then this one random Canadian guy wins the whole thing.
yeah,
Regan Grimes last year had to go to Brazil, to the Arnold Brazil to get his pro card, and you had to go to Pittsburgh to get yours, right? So are you guys? I'm sure you talk to a lot of other athletes up there. You guys see it as a really good thing that there are all these other opportunities for the best Canadian athletes to go outside of Canada and try for their pro card?
I'd say so. Yeah, a lot of it is just timing. Like, of course, it's wherever you go, you still got to be the best to win it. It's like I know it's like Regan, he's placing well at pro shows right now. Ian has as well. They've both been known as some of the top bodybuilders in Canada. It was just that year they didn't win it, and I'm sure the next year they both probably would have won the Canadian title and gotten their card there. So they were a little less patient and willing to travel. So why not go out? It's a good opportunity. They still got to earn themselves on the pro circuit. So
as far as the Classic Division, do you have any close friends that are at the top of the game you're going to be up against in Vegas next weekend?
Not too many. Like being stuck up here in Canada, I don't know too many guys, but I've been in contact with a few of them on social media and whatnot. I know a good friend I've made through at Santiago. He didn't qualify this year, but he's going to be there, I know. And there's a lot of good guys in the show. So far, every time I've competed, I've made friends throughout it. Like I did the Diana Cadeau with Terrence Ruffin last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a great kid. He's my age. I wouldn't have guessed it. Acts like he's like as mature as a 30-year-old, and it looks like it too. Not face, but his body looks very mature. So like, there's a lot of great guys in the division for sure. Everyone seems to be super friendly and like.
Safe to say you're the youngest guy that's going to be on that Classic Olympia stage this year, yes?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone.
Second youngest, and he's 23.
Who's that?
Terrence Ruffin.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because a lot of these guys are like Hester's older than me. He's like a few months old. Danny's older than me, and Stan's no spring chicken. Yeah,
Mhm.
I find it interesting that you have the best guys. You have some of them that are pushing 50, and some of them that are you're less than half our age, and you're kicking
Yeah,
ass
I
too.
was a little shocked myself. I know Breon, he's one of my favorite guys right now in the division. I thought he was like in his 20s, just how young he looks, and I found out he was 38, and I was like, oh shit,
Yeah,
true.
that's funny you say that because for the print magazine MD, I had to write a feature for the last issue talking about the young guns, the best up and coming young athletes, and Steve is telling me who he'd like featured, suggesting people, and he put Breon, and I got back to him. I said, Steve, do you realize how old Breon is?
Yeah,
He looks
nobody knows.
he looks like
Yeah.
26, 27, but yeah, he's like 10 years older.
Hmm.
Fountain of youth, I guess. But so when did you really have a chance for an off season? I mean, did you competed in the Diana Cadu was what, like October last year?
Yeah, it was late October.
So that was a whole year of dieting.
Hmm.
Probably took you a little while just to recover from all that and get ready to train again.
Yeah.
So and then you competed in May. So how much time did you have for an off season then? And then how much time did you have for an off season after the May shows?
Really not much time at all, because right after like my competing season was over, I was pretty new with MHB, so they had me fly out for about 3 photo shoots over the course of December,
Yeah.
November and December. So it wasn't until kind of the holidays I could relax and like kind of off seasons get back to my proper training,
Yeah.
and then really I didn't want to let myself get too out of shape, so I had about 3 months maybe before 3 months of like a proper off season, and then I got right back to prep for the May shows. And then after that, I only had 4 weeks after Toronto, which was the end of May. I had 4 weeks where I kind of just increased my calories and tried to train as hard as I could, and then it was right back to prep.
Because I'm looking at your recent pictures of you. When I saw you in Toronto, that's the only time I've seen you compete so far. And I agreed with pretty much what they were saying, and you knew it at the time. The areas you really need to bring up, your arms and your back thickness. And I'm looking at the pictures you've been posting the past couple of weeks. You made some serious improvements in both of those.
Mm-hmm.
So you did it pretty much while you were staying lean and prepping. What were the keys to doing that? Because a lot of guys think they have to get big and bulked up to make any kind of gains at all.
Mainly just luckily for myself, now that I'm a professional bodybuilder, I can live this lifestyle. I don't have to work, and I was out of school, so a lot of it was I could train twice a day. So I'd wake up, do whatever I need to do, get to the gym pretty early, could come home, nap, and I'd go back, and I'd have like 2 days a week, and it would always be arms back, repeatedly train them as much as possible, and just I'd try and stay lean, so I'd eat on leg day. I'd eat actually less food than usual compared to most people, because I didn't need to bring them up. Stuff like shoulders, I would eat a little bit less on that day, and then arm day, back day, I would increase my calories almost double, and then kind of switch back and forth like that. It also doesn't hurt that I'm 22 years old, so I'm much younger. I've changed this quick at this age. My body's responding really well to everything. So
yeah, I mean that's a cool thing. I don't know if you're aware who Derek Lunsford is. He's a new 212 kid.
oh yeah.
Same situation. He's 24 and he's only been doing this for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So people are like, how are you making all these gains? Look how old he is.
Exactly. Yeah.
If he was 44 and making these gains, yeah, then I'd be like thinking this was something from outer space. But 22 years old, you're probably still gonna be growing and improving. So I have to, before I get back to the arms, because I'm looking at the pictures, and you were definitely bottom heavy when I saw you compete. You still have the wide shoulders and everything, but there was more mass in the lower. But when I see these pictures, and we're going to throw up a couple here while we're during the interview when this airs, but you seem so much more balanced now. I don't see anything overpowering anything the way it was. Did you cut back on your leg training at all, or are they just as big as they always were, and the upper body just came up?
I did cut back on it a little bit, because I knew I didn't really have time to keep them that size and bring my upper body up. So I cut back on my leg training. I think at one point I'd stopped training them for a full month. I just didn't touch my legs, and I just focused on everything else. So it allowed they probably did come down a little bit, but they're still considerably large, so I wasn't too worried about it. Right. But I knew I needed to like come in more balanced for this show. So I took my focus off them for sure, and tried to put all my energy into my upper body workouts.
It worked. Definitely your plan paid off, because definitely so much better balance and proportion than you had before. So getting to 225 now is not easy for you. here you're still rowing, you're still a young guy. Are you concerned at all that, a year from now, 2 years from now, if these weight limits for Classic stay the same, that you're going to have to move into open bodybuilding instead? Or how do you plan on keeping that weight down?
It's a thought I've had for sure. Honestly, I'm kind of banking on the idea that they're either going to increase the weight limit or just get rid of it. And I feel like after a few years, they're going to establish, no one really knows what the classic look means now. I don't think all the judges know exactly what they're looking for. But in a few years, when we've seen enough competitors and enough people have won pro shows, we'll have an established look, and maybe they'll get rid of the weight limit. And if you come in and you're too big, then you just place bad. So that's an idea that I've heard thrown around a couple times, or just I've also heard a few people say the weight limit's going to go up. But if it were to go up, then yeah, I'm sure in 10 years when I'm like 35 years old, I might still be too big, but I'm not really focusing on that right now. I know I can still fine tune what I need to. Like every year I can come in leaner and harder. I know I can push myself more. So if I grow a little bit, I'll have to come in leaner next year and I'll weigh less. It's just trying to focus on what I'm doing right now.
That's interesting because I haven't heard that. Obviously, you're more in the loop as to what people are talking about as far as possible changes to the division, but I think that's a great idea. Now, what do you think about changing the name of it to Classic Bodybuilding and just making it a division alternative to open bodybuilding, where proportion and symmetry and a small waist weighs a lot more heavily in the judging than just raw mass and inside out condition?
I honestly think that they wish they could do it right now, but there's that other division. Is it in Europe or UK or something, wherever they have a classic bodybuilding right now? And I think it's just legal rights. They're not allowed to call it that. So I mean, the name's the name. However they judge it is going to be what matters.
True. No, I mean, I remember being one of the Arnold Classics I covered for MD with Giles, my buddy from the UK. They did have, and this was the Ohio Arnold, they did have a classic bodybuilding division that year. And it was exactly what you said. They weren't concerned about heights and weight restrictions like that. The trunks they were still wearing bodybuilding trunks. I think the guys tended to have, more coverage on the side rather than the little string that you see in the open. But it was pretty much where you're talking about what classic physique as we know it now might evolve into.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have no problem with that. I'd actually prefer that. Plus, you'd get to hit more poses, and you got to be bummed that you have glute striations that you dieted and worked so hard for that you can't show off.
Exactly. Yeah. I know all the guys you see coming in shape. They're all posting their progress pictures, either hiking their classic physique shorts over their butt or they're wearing bodybuilding chunks. Like, we want to show off what we got. Especially for me, I know my upper quad is where my big sweep comes, and like my hips have some crazy striations that come down them, and my upper quad has like these weird muscles that I don't even know what they are myself, but it looks much better right at the top of my quad, and it's hidden mostly by my shorts. So it'd be nice if we at least, like you said, had like the old school chunks that were thick on the side, but not like boxer briefs,
Well, I have a feeling if those changes are made, at least you'll still be competing to be part of that. I don't know about these the guys my age; they might be gone by then. So tell me about this. Is your first Olympia coming up? How excited are you? How different is this from the shows that you've done so far in your head?
It's hard to even explain. I don't know. This is one of the first shows that I'm like coming into right now, and like it feels like such a big deal. Like I know Nationals a big deal. First pro shows are a big deal, but all I was thinking was like, oh, I just want to go in and do well, go in and look good, and I'll be happy. This is one of the first shows where I'm like, this is a big deal. Like, it doesn't get any bigger than this. So my mindset is much more hardcore than it has been in the past. I know, like I used to like nibble on things or dieting. Now I just don't touch anything. My cardio, I'm doing 5 minutes extra than I should be. Like, I'm still trying to keep my training intensity high, no matter how shitty I feel. So definitely super excited to be stepping on the stage. I've never even been to Olympia to watch, so the fact that I'm going for the first time and stepping on stage it's an amazing feeling for sure.
And I think it says a lot about how far the division's come so fast that you guys are on. I think your judging is in the expo hall. Am I right?
Yeah.
But the finals are on the main stage of the Orleans Arena.
Yeah, we are on the main
stage. That's
stage.
a pretty big deal.
For sure, yeah.
It took the 12 guys like 6-7 years to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. So the division's growing like crazy. I know everyone loves it, so it's amazing that we kind of scary stepping on stage in front of 10,000 people, however many people there, but it'll be exciting for sure.
And talk about that for a second. The division, it's not even 2 years old yet. This is the second season, isn't even over, but I don't know how it is in Canada, but when I go to the regional shows here in the U.S., the classics classes are stacked. Everybody wants to be classic. Everybody wants. Is it the same up in Canada? Are those divisions growing real fast?
It's huge. Yeah, it's almost detrimental to bodybuilding. It's so big here. I know some of the local shows around where I am, Nova Scotia. Last one, I think there was maybe 3 open bodybuilders, and then like 25 to 30 classic physique, and it was crazy. It's good and it's bad, but I feel like a lot of people like who are starting out, all they think in their head is, oh, I'm not big enough to be a bodybuilder. I guess I'll just do classic, and it's like that's kind of ruining the point. You're still supposed to have that classic look and like be classic to be in the division, not just because you're too small right now. So it's good and bad.
Well, you say that, it's interesting because a lot of top classic competitors have pointed out that it's not just about, it's about the look. It's not because you're this tall and this is the weight that you would like to compete at. I do see a lot of guys who don't have that look. They're I hate to say it, but failed bodybuilders. They just were never able to build the mass, but they never really had pretty shape either. So they're trying this because they think they're going to be more successful at it. And a lot of them are realizing, oh, I guess I'm not going to be good at this. Because, if you have like a waist this wide and your shoulders are this wide, you're not going to do well in classic. It's still all about, it's more so about good genetics, I think. Some guys are coming out now in these North American, there were some freaks, even in the Masters. Guys coming out of the woodwork with amazing genetics that probably never would have ever competed in bodybuilding, either because they weren't interested or they just didn't want to look that big. They didn't want to do what it takes to get that big. They wouldn't, give me your theory. Why do you think classic is I don't want to say taking over, but why is it just booming in popularity? Why do so many guys want to be part of it?
I guess it is part of that. It seems, and I guess it is more attainable. It's more attainable. It's more attractive to the average human. It's easier on the body, healthier, realistically, and like you're more functional in day-to-day life on top of still being at the top of like an elite physique of people, which is like pretty rare. And I know also a lot of people will see someone go pro maybe at like, let's say they go pro with a heavyweight and they look amazing, have a super like beautiful physique, and now they're like, oh shit, I need to put on 50 pounds. And then they're like, oh, like I'm not going to take 2 years off to do it. I want to do it in 6 months and compete at the next pro show. And then they just do whatever they can, take whatever they need to take, and put on 40 pounds in like 4 months, and then their physique's ruined and they look like shit. Right. And everyone was telling them to get big, like go in the open, and once they do it, then everyone forgets about them and like, oh, you're big now. I don't like you anymore, Yeah. So it allows people to expand when they have a beautiful physique at a certain weight. You can kind of hang out around there and just fine tune it and perfect it.
Right. A lot of guys start lifting weights and they want to be bodybuilders to get girls. Let's be realistic. There's a lot of reasons people get into it. Some of them would come from a real strong athletic background like yourself, and they would just realize that they had a talent for it. Others are just, insecure little skinny kids or fat kids, and that's why they did it. But a lot of guys get into this because they want more attention from girls. But if that's the reason the young guys getting into it these days, if I've showed girls pictures on my phone of like big Rami, and every one of them is like, oh God, it's disgusting.
I mean, if you want to do it for girls, get into CrossFit and weigh 180 pounds and have abs or something, Girls don't like big bodybuilders and veiny as hell or big, like, juicy guys. They'd rather have physique guys, exactly.
But I'm saying even as you got someone like yourself, you carry far more muscle mass than an average guy does. But because you have a small waist and you have these proportions and everything, I've seen women's reactions to pictures of guys like you, Sadiq, Arash, Callum, and not one of them has ever said yuck. Not one of them has said that's disgusting. Like, wow, he looks great. So, universally across the board, this just seems to be a look that's appealing to everybody right now. So, and I don't want bodybuilding to die. I've been part of that sport industry for my whole life, but it's not going to die. I don't believe that's ever going to happen. But when progress is what people want. You can't tell people what to like, and they seem to like this a lot. So good for you, because you're just starting out and you're in this division, which is it's going nowhere but up from here.
Sure, yeah.
So I want to give you the chance. I know that you don't do this on your own. There's probably some people in your corner here who are helping you out. Who's on your team that's behind all this?
Like
who do you want
sponsors
to
or
Anybody,
Like,
girlfriend, sponsor, coach, anybody.
I guess there's quite a few. My whole family is so supportive. My sister, of course, she's always been my like best friend since day one. She's doing the Olympia with me, so
Oh, wow.
it's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to have like her doing the show with me and supporting me, as well as her boyfriend Ian, who is coaching me through it. He's literally taught me probably everything I know through bodybuilding. I trained with him my first few years of it, and all my little tips and tricks I give out to people are usually something I've heard from him in the past. So I can easily say I wouldn't be here today without him. My parents as well. It's not easy to support your child going to something like this, and I was pretty young when I started, and to see like your little boy who was playing football all of a sudden on stage in like a little bikini flexing up there, it's not easy, but they've been super supportive. They fed me in my off season, and they love seeing me on stage, how happy I am. So they've definitely helped a lot too. And my girlfriend, of course, she's got to put up with me throughout prep every day, and she's been amazing with it. She helps me with my meals when I need it. It helps keep me sane, keep my mind off being so hungry, and it's been super supportive. It's really just my whole family, everyone around me has been super amazing and supportive. Really lucky.
Do you train on your own, or do you have training partners?
I almost always train on my own.
Wow.
When I'm in Ottawa, I'll train with Ian, but now that I'm away from school, it's usually by myself. Or the odd time, Dana Baker, he won super heavyweight nationals this year. Didn't get his pro card, but he's an amazing bodybuilder, big boy. I train with him quite a bit out here too. So,
do you still train mostly at your university gym?
no, I'm at the Good Life gym now here in Canada. It's like an LA Fitness, I guess, a corporate gym around the country. It's not the best, but they got everything I need. So
they haven't kicked you out yet, right? So
no, not yet.
That's
I've had a few complaints in deadlifting, saying I'm too loud, but like I know I put it down as quietly as 600 pounds and hit the floor. So
unbelievable. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'll be watching you and the other Classic Physique Pros up in Vegas with great interest. This division is very exciting. I think it's also. I should ask you, what about competing with Flex Wheeler? What's that going to be like?
Oh, when I heard that, I was extremely excited for sure. I mean, you look at the old school pictures of him, and I can't even picture or think of a more classic look than that. Everything was amazing for him. I feel like he was bigger than the weight limit should allow him to be, and everyone still looks at that as classic. So, reason they should up the weight, but no, for sure, just to step on stage with such a legend is going to be a surreal feeling for sure.
That's what I'm saying. This lineup is it's just all over the place. You got young guys like yourself, or just a few years out of high school. You got guys old enough to be your dad. It's crazy. It's cool. Though. It's going to be like I think it's probably going to be the most exciting part of the weekend. That and the 212. The Open, I think we all know Phil's probably going to win, so it's not that thrilling.
Don't take that from him yet. Yeah.
We're still going to be watching. But as far as I feel like your Olympia is going to be a lot more wide open. As far as we have no idea who's going to win right now.
It was like I was saying, a lot of the judges, I feel like sometimes no one really knows exactly what they're looking for yet. It's like the classic look is still a matter of opinion, really. So everyone's got their opinion, like who looks more classic. No one knows there's no set, this guy's going to win. I feel like every year for a while it's going to be like that too. So it'll be interesting for quite a few years.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, could be Danny again. Could be Arash. Could be Sadiq, Breon. Could be you. It's wide open, and that's exciting to me because we're not going to know until you guys all get out there and we see who really nailed the condition. Until we see everybody side by side and shuffled around a bit, it's not going to be. There's no way to tell. It's just going to be something to really look forward to, and I'm looking forward to it.
Sure. Yeah.
So I thank you for your time, Chris. I know the prep has to be hitting you pretty hard right about now, but you took the time, and I know you had to battle some traffic to get home in time for this too. So appreciate it very much. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Cool. So for the Ronline Report, it's been me, Ron Harris, with Classic Physique Pro and Olympia favorite, Chris Bumstead. Talk to you next time.